So we're gonna watch this. So you need help choosing an FFXIV job. Oh god. Here come the takes. Yeah, I don't react much these days. Apologies. I know some people really like it. I'm just bad. Alright, let's take a look.
So Daddy P tells me you're stuck trying to pick a class. Oh, don't be scared, friend. He has eyes and ears everywhere. It's all according to his keikaku. Keikaku means plan. Anyway, he sent me here to help you. But between you and me, I'm probably not the absolute best person for it. I'm not an
Saren only reacts to Lucy Pyre. That is not true. But they're like one of few people that actually like upload good videos. Like reacting to non-XIV stuff, like there's nothing I can say about it. I'm just sat here watching it. Like I don't know what to say. Whereas this stuff I can actually discuss.
expert on every single job out there. But you know what? I have leveled almost all of them to 90. Can you guess what I got to show for it? That's right. Opinions. Possibly of the bad variety, but I'm confident that at the end of this video, you're gonna be able to look back and say, yeah, those were definitely some opinions. But first, a little disclaimer to help guide you through this video. One, in all seriousness, nothing I say can be completely objective. I mean, I could be objective by only talking about their spells and skills in depth, but I don't think that helps people choose a class. Generally, people are interested in how a job plays, not the rotational details that they'll have to learn in-game anyway. So while you can take this with a grain of salt if you want, I am right on the edge of being a filthy casual.
Alright, so like, I'm gonna just say straight away that like, when it comes to picking a job, if it were me advising people, the number one thing you should go for is like what looks cool to you. Like whether it's aesthetically or maybe you've looked at a rotation, you kind of like the style of the rotation. Do you like static stuff or like proc-based stuff? Those are the two factors, man. Like, that should narrow it down enough for you to at least make a start.
I think my perspective is as close to a sprout as a veteran can possibly get. Too, the visuals in this video are not a representation of the actual job rotation, but more of a skill and spell showcase. Only use the rotations you see in this video if you've gone completely feral and want to be reported for griefing. And finally, number 3, remember that the best method of choosing a job is picking the one that looks fun to you. You're not gonna like the game if you pick a job based on what some stupid cringe lord said on the internet, so all other advice comes second to your own vibe check. Also, I'm gonna put 2 terms I'll be using up on the screen, so pause here if you want or need to read it. Otherwise, if you don't care or you already know a bit about MMOs, let's get right to it. Tanks. This is the role you want of being insanely overpowered as your ultimate fantasy. Let me kill one common myth that stops sprouts in their tracks. Tanking in this game is not hard. Maybe it is in other games, but it's definitely not in this game. Taking aggro is as easy as turning on your tank stance and hitting one AoE. Bam! All the enemies hate you now. Tanking is extremely approachable, and it's also very forgiving. If a DPS can only afford to make 2 mistakes before dying, you can make 3 times that amount and literally shake it off. In fact, it's so easy that most of the time you'll be pulling several mob packs because enemies just don't deal enough damage to make you feel alive otherwise.
Listen up. Do big pulls. Learn to tank. Small pulls won't teach you to tank, because it won't mean that you have to use CDs, even though you should use them anyway. I honestly believe that big pulls teach people how to tank better than just like being a bitch. I think that's like the #1 way to get better before even going into any raid content.
So make sure your gear isn't broken before any duty, and keep your eye on the party to check that you're going at the pace that everyone seems to want. Paladin is for people who like the Holy Knight aesthetic, or people like me who simply couldn't stop themselves from simping for Link as a child. It goes through a physical and magic damage phase, and as of 6.0, it has incredible self-healing built into its core rotation. They have situational utility that isn't often needed, but can be a run saver when it is. Out of all the others, they probably fit the role of pure tank the best. They've got strong defensive cooldowns, and they fit the aesthetic of protecting the party well, with skills like fluency, intervention, cover, and passage of arms. The high-level rotation can be a bit tricky to learn for a completely new player, but it starts off very simple and lets you get used to skills as you level up, just like a...
Oh no, man, I don't think Paladin's rotation is very complex. Optimizing it gets a bit fucking strange, yeah. I agree. But on the surface, like, it's very intuitive. You do the combos and the physical buff, and then you do magic outside of that. Pretty easy. It is compared to Warrior. I mean, if we're comparing to other tanks, alright, maybe. But
White Knight, he starts gentle. I'd say you should pick this if you like a bit of complexity and the idea of helping the party
Paladin's
when
brimming
needed
with
sounds
class
fun for you.
fantasy,
Warrior has an Oonga Boonga reputation, but real Sigmas know that going anime-style berserk and out of control is just as edgy as having your own shadow. Fitting with this aesthetic, they press a button, go crazy, and this magically allows them to auto-crit. Game logic. It's easy to pick up and learn in a short period of time, and they have insanely good self and party healing, to the point where they don't often need a healer at max level. They're also strong in the defensive cooldown department though, with plenty of options for tank buster mechanics. As a caveat, it does have the lowest DPS of all tanks currently, but the difference between each tank is so marginal.
is that true? I thought Warrior was like a bit ahead of Paladin still. Wow. Shit, dude. I guess Paladins can stop crying now.
But it doesn't change the fact that this job is very powerful. Maybe even too powerful. Don't let the warrior.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, kill time.
This is a good choice if you like being self-sufficient
those,
and you
right?
value simplicity in your gameplay. Dark Knight is the misunderstood teenager of the bunch with deaf parents that
The
just
MySpace
don't
class.
understand him. Like Paladin, it also deals magical damage, but they have no cast times to speak of because they're afraid they'll look stupid by just standing there casting. This
Boxy
job
would play
received
Dark
some
Knight.
good changes in 6.1, making it more approachable to new players and giving veterans the strongest sense of euphoria since the release of Female Viera. If your main selling point is dark aesthetics, they've got tons of that packed into this job, and damn is it sick. Their rotation is similar to, but a bit more difficult than Warrior, as they have several off-global cooldowns to handle. Unlike Warrior though, they're not very blessed in the realm of self-healing or defensive cooldowns, with far less options than any other tank. In exchange for these flaws, they do currently have the best DPS of all tanks. So I would pick this job if you like to deal big damage, and the difficulty curve doesn't turn you off from tanking as a whole. To round off the
I honestly think Dark Knight has by far the best aesthetic out of any tank. And I think Paladin is second. Like, Dark Knight is just so flashy, man. And a lot of people that, like, love tanking, you know, love to be badass, you know what I mean? So, like, they either want to be, like, the holy protectors, so they play Paladin, or they just want to be a fucking edgy boy that does a lot of damage. So I think those two really kind of excel at, like, selling themselves. Like, Warrior, I don't know, man. Like, Warrior, I guess Warrior is for angry people. And Gunbreaker, I don't really know where Gunbreaker lies in that, to be honest. Gunbreaker just doesn't feel like a tank. It isn't until you play them, I guess.
tanks.
But, you know, we're talking about just
choosing
choosing a
a
class,
for
you
either
know.
rabbit squirrels or caffeine addicts. It has the second highest DPS of all tanks because it just presses its buttons harder than anyone else. Why didn't the other jobs?
Yeah,
think of
like
that?
Gunbreaker
Their
really
cartridge
doesn't
system
feel
gives
like a
them
tank
access
to me, man.
special
I
moves
never
that are
played it
guaranteed
because
to boost your
I felt
serotonin
like
levels.
tanking
Now,
was
I'll be
such.
honest and say I don't think this job is extremely approachable to new players, especially if it's your first time tanking. The rotation is fun and enjoyable to learn, but can be punishing when trying to manage defensive cooldowns on top of it. But don't let that discourage you. The base rotation is very simple in and of itself, so it's just a matter of planning your defensive cooldowns, of which Gunbreaker has plenty. Their self-healing isn't as good as Warrior or Paladin, but it's still noticeable and gives them considerable self-sustain. And also, let's be honest with ourselves, their aesthetic is absolutely banger. Choose this if
I
you
don't
like
know,
to
man.
go
I
Sonic
find their
speed and you
aesthetic to
like
be
a good
quite
balance
nondescript,
between
personally.
defensives and self-healing. Healers, this is the perfect role for you
Alright,
if
let's
the
go.
idea of trying the Carolina Reaper fills you with ecstasy. Or your main goal in life is to solve everyone else's problems but never.
Dude, I will never forget this, man. Like, I will. Wait, surely she's gonna show the
Once
rest.
again, don't be
No, she
intimidated.
doesn't, man. I just the fucking reveal. Like, nobody knew just how good Expedient was gonna be, but holy fuck, it just wasn't. It just wasn't, like, at all persuasive or convincing. It was just like, he's running out of an AoE. Why is he doing that? Holy shit, watching the Scholar meltdown was just the best thing, man.
By the support title. Much like tanks, healing is very approachable in this game and forgiving. Heal potency is very high and the outgoing damage is weak, so you have a wide margin for error. The goal of healers is not to heal so much as it is to keep the party alive and deal as much damage of their own as they can. 6.0 made this even easier with the shorter cast times, meaning they can weave on every single DPS cast. As for cons, they really don't have much in the way of a DPS rotation, so if that's important to you, I suggest rolling tank or ranged. The balancing act between healing and DPSing comes together with practice, and because the game is designed to be friendly to new players, you'll have plenty of time to get the hang of things. White Mage is the pure healer that uses water, earth, wind, and holy magic. Just kidding, you're only going to get holy and water magic at level 90. Hey, I had you there. One of its strengths is that its base toolkit is very potent, so when things go to hell in a handbasket, White Mage can usually bring things back from the brink of death. Their spammable AoE, Holy, has a stun connected to it, which makes it convenient for dungeon
Honestly,
runs.
like, I just find Glare and Holy now to be too flashy. Like, they're actually just... like, they're too bright, man. It doesn't need to be that crazy. The only glare you get is a glaring headache.
Have a unique skill, presence of mind, that allows them to go even further beyond. They don't have many off-global cooldowns, but they do have the Lily system. It lets you save up to 3 strong heals at any given time, either single target or AoE. And it unlocks a Flatus Misery at the end, which is a big damage spell that gives back the DPS you lost from healing. So you're basically a Karen who constantly comes around asking for a refund. I'd say you should pick this job if it's important for you to be able to heal from the get-go, and you like seeing big numbers pop up on the screen. Scholar is a pet job shield healer and a walking r/I am very smart post. It requires you to keep an eye out for your fairy and properly position her so the heals can actually reach the party. But hey, in exchange for the hassle, you have a pet that can do a huge portion of the healing for you. This is where the green DPS meme comes from, and Scholar mains are probably tired of hearing it for 8 years. Their main healing mechanic is the Ether Flow system, which keeps their MP stable and is split between healing abilities and energy drain, a DPS skill that you use if healing isn't needed. They have good utility with a crit booster and a party-wide sprint. They do have more to learn compared to White Mage, but it isn't too difficult once you get used to it. One drawback is that they aren't quite as good at recovery when things go wrong, as their base heals aren't very potent. But Scholar is still a competent job and can do a great deal when in the right hands. You should...
I think the problem is, like, with showcasing healers, like, it's really difficult to describe them because, like, there's a lot of, like, buttons that do things, but it's not going to be immediately obvious to a new player. Like, what's actually happening. So, like, props for trying, but, like, it's tough to really, like, tell people. Like, she's doing a good job of just giving a general overview. But I think they need to listen to that more than, like, watching what's actually happening.
Pick this job if you enjoy pet management and you want to provide utility without as much hassle as the Astrologian card system has. Astrologian is not to be mistaken with the person who dumped you because your Virgo vibes were too exhausting. They have a simple card management system that buffs the DPS of other party members. Connected to the cards is the seal system, which can buff their own MP regen, speed, or DPS depending on if you collect all 3. Gotta catch 'em all, am I right? But all this utility doesn't mean they're a slouch in the healing department. They have an answer for any mechanic or fight. Need a regen? No worries! It's part of my kit. Need a shield? Oh sure. Let me just use my OP ability neutral sec that somehow survived the 6.0
I think
perk.
aesthetics alone
Yeah.
will make people choose Astro, man. Like, Astro looks really cool. They just need to, like, dodge all the fucking doomsaying about Astro, because, like, no matter what iteration it's in, people are unhappy. But it looks fucking crazy.
It's tied to my entire kit. Need to heal a difficult mechanic? Macrocosmos, baby! They sound like they have it all, and they kinda do. But this can be a very fast-paced job when played at a high level, particularly for the average controller user. It's doable, but definitely has a learning curve. They can be a bit clunky, but they're an extremely strong healer packed full of party utility. So if you enjoy a challenge and this is a mountain you want to climb, it's a good one to choose. Sage is the new shield healer with the most confusing name to aesthetic ratio in the entire game. My running theory is
Spaceship.
that it's just an acronym for Surgeons Always Gank Enemies. It's fast-paced and similar to Scholar. It has automatic healing built into its kit, which
Yeah, it's
does
like
require
monks,
you
man.
to be continuously
They're never
DPSing
happy
in order
either.
to keep it active, but hey, you're gonna be doing that on every healer anyway. It has tons of off-global cooldowns and even has a gap closer, making it the first healer with a unique self-movement option. Its gauge functions similarly to White Mage's Lily system and is tied to its NP Restore, which can admittedly suffer a bit when no healing is needed. They don't have any party utilities save for their massive off-global cooldown healing kit, but this job is fun to learn anyway, mostly because lasers make my inner 9-year-old go sicko mode. Pick this job if you have prior experience healing in an MMO and you want slightly more DPS options.
Complaining about getting 5 ladies each run. Yeah, like, here's the thing. Like, this is just where Square Enix's idea of healing differs from the high-end player base. Like, they think that's okay because more healing is great. But then they don't design fights to fucking need it. So at that point, all people want to do is DPS, but Square Enix seem to think people heal a lot more than they do. So they've put this like 50-50 system in, but I don't think they're gonna remove it because I think they just think we really gotta heal fuckloads. And Astro's kit's so insanely strong already. Is it necessary? Surely they could repurpose it into something else.
Than the other healers have. Casters! Now this may come as a shock,
Alright,
but
let's
they
go.
cast spells and deal magical damage. The obvious benefit is that they don't need to be in melee range to deal damage. Every caster is easy to understand at a basic level, and they provide more DPS than the range classes while having decent mobility themselves with their unique skills and slide casting. Still, they will have to sacrifice some mobility, and being forced to cancel a cast you'd almost finish just to dodge an AoE can trigger the old gamer rage. So they benefit from good positioning and situational awareness.
Yo, Summoners, when this came out, like, when you saw this, what did you think? Because when I saw this, I was like, man, this looks really easy, but looks kind of fun. Little did we know just how easy it was gonna be. Like, looking back on it, I feel like people were probably more hyped than they should have been, but... Maybe that was just the divide between people that liked Shadowbringers Summoner and people that didn't like it.
First off is Summoner, a pet class that has recently received a massive tummy tuck and facelift. This is the most approachable job in the entire game, as the base rotation isn't complex, it goes at a moderate to slow pace. They have good utility in the form of a Battle Raise and Searing Light, which is a party-wide small DPS buff. They're extremely mobile, with the bulk of their casts being instant, making them reach ranged levels of mobility most of the time. Expectedly though, they do have the least DPS of all the casters. Unlike Scholar, their summons will handle themselves for the most part, so positioning isn't as much of a priority. They're also extremely flashy. Are you seeing this shit? It's almost distracting. In fact, it is distracting. This is the only job that lets other players use a command to make your pet smaller. Even though this is an easy class, sometimes easy can still be pretty enjoyable, particularly when you're just starting out.
Like this, it like sped up like this, it looks like
or you
crazy.
like to focus more on boss mechanics rather than rotational mechanics. Red Mage is the French job of the series with memes that make me very homicidal. And yes, I am slightly ashamed of that one. Other than that though, it's a fun job that varies between being moderate to fast-paced with a simple rotation that's easy to understand at a glance. It's mobile, not as much as Summoner, but its dual cast mechanic makes every other spell instant. They have a melee combo with their sword, and it's pretty flashy. Actually, the entire job is prime aesthetic real estate. They have good DPS, and their main mechanic, the white and black mana gauge, is very forgiving. It also has a ton of utility, with a battle raise, a decent healing spell, a party-wide DPS buff, and a magic defense and
I'm
heal
still yet
boosting
to put a
shield.
lot of time
Honestly,
into
they
new
don't
Red
have many
Mage.
flaws,
I need to
though
do
they
that.
can be caught in a bad situation movement-wise if you don't manage your cooldowns properly. This is a great job if you want the best of both worlds on the casting and melee front, and you love being able to assist the party in virtually any way it could need. Black Mage is UCP's golden child, and its design reflects that blatant favoritism. Their aesthetic is fire, ice, thunder, and void magic, so it's great for people who are edgy but aren't quite ready to take that leap into Reaper just yet. It has the best DPS of all casters and can outdo most melees, but it has no utility and the least movement options of all casters in exchange. Still, they're no slouch in that department, as triple cast stacks give them great mobility when used well. The trick of this job is positioning so that you move as little as possible, because these cast times can take a hot second compared to, say, Summoner. This is where the healer adjust meme comes from. I'll be honest and say I don't think this job is super approachable to someone who's new, as all the movement cost from learning mechanics
but so
can be
many
pretty
people go to
frustrating
it because
with
it's so
canceling casts
iconic.
left and right. My suggestion is to play this job if you're looking for a challenge and you have prior experience with MMOs. Home on the ranged.
Yeah, I mean, like, my biggest issue with casters right now is just, like, the weird spot they're in compared to Fizz Ranged. Like, chat, they're just showcasing the jobs. Fucking calm down, man. Actually, Jesus. She said don't use it as an rotational example, man. Anyway, as I was saying, like, casters are getting too mobile, man. Like, Square Enix just seem to think that, like, just because there's a cast bar, this is now a caster. They are in a league of their own. Good casters, like, this is no problem, and they can move nearly as much as Fizz Ranged. A Summoner especially just has no cast at all, but, like, it's just so, I don't know, man. Like, Square Enix really need to sort this shit out. It's getting silly. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about casters. I just don't like the I don't like the position they're in relation to ranged, at least. It's all these raider brains coming out. I get it, chat, trust me, but it's not the point.
A rule for people who need to keep their distance from the boss. So
No, don't show this, man. I'd already lost hope when they showed this, dude. I was like, oh good, flamethrowers in the game. Oh good, bioblast is still in the game. The two abilities they fucking start with. Jesus fuck, man. It's like they just want this class to be buried so they can delete it without much backlash. I get it, Yoshi P, but I'm not defeated yet.
Its massive Chad energy. This is the home of the utility and maximum mobility squad. Unless you're a machinist, but they'll have to wait their turn. Every range class is pretty simple. If from no other perspective, then the gist of this rotation is easy to understand. It's a forgiving rule for beginners because you move as much as you want. Your main advantage is that your DPS stays the same whether the boss is 20 feet away or right on top of you. And you can maintain that even in situations where you're forced to be on the move. Casters could never. I mean, other than Summoner. Because of your utility, everyone's happy to see you in the dungeon. And the main con is you have the lowest personal damage of all the DPS roles, but with the ability to hop around the entire arena, who really cares, right? Bard is the OG ranged role and is definitely not suffering an identity crisis with its archer roots. Their gameplay is on the more fast-paced side with lots of proc.
Bard is very aesthetically pleasing.
Here and there. They have 3 songs to maintain and each one does something
Bard
different
thing
that
is done
Bard
pretty
a
well in my
somewhat more
opinion.
Unique playstyle than the others. What's more, their songs
It feels
are
more
constantly
dancey
buffing
than
the party.
dancer.
That means Bard is singing and slinging arrows and moving while dealing with mechanics. What an icon. The rotation itself isn't too difficult. Any problems you face will probably be related to not being able to use procs on time without clipping your GCD. This is a job that starts out very easy and has a natural progression towards getting more complex. Pick this if you like your job to grow with you, so to speak, and having unique methods of party support sounds essential to you. Dancer is a role popular with cat girls who idle in Limsa Lamensa. Wonder why that is.
Not just dancers, man. Shush. I can dance better than dancers. Have you seen my flips and shit?
Anyway, other than Summoner, this is an approachable and easy job that I can happily recommend to newcomers. Their primary buffing mechanic is the dance partner Tether, the strongest DPS buff in the game. They can pick one single DPS as their partner at the beginning of an instance and not really need to worry about it after. But wait, there's more. Along with heals and a defense boosting skill. Its mobility may be the best of all jobs because of its 3 dash charges, which lets it escape bad situations in a second. On top of all that, the changes in 6.1
Dance is pretty
have only
cool,
made
like,
this job
aesthetically
easier.
as well.
It's not ridiculously flashy,
very
but it's fun to look at, and it fills its dancing aesthetic well. I'd recommend it to players who want a simple DPS job that's got more utility than Summoner. Machinist is a role that wields abominations that should never be called guns. It's considered the selfish range DPS that's meant to have the most damage in the role, while boasting much less utility compared to the others. Its pace ranges from very fast, with lots of moments where you need to weave in off-global cooldowns, to slowing down considerably when the cooldowns are running. They've got a high-tech aesthetic that stretches out to more than just guns, as they also have turrets, drills, flamethrowers, bioblasters, automaton queens, and a chainsaw. Though this job is potentially a serial killer that has an aesthetic you're not going to find anywhere else in the game. One drawback is that this job is heavily punished for bad ping, so take that into consideration if you live far from your server. It's not the most approachable job, but it's definitely doable. I'd suggest
it's an approachable job, and I think that's the mistake Square Enix are making. Its ceiling is brought down by how easy it is to learn. Like calling it a not approachable job. I don't know. I'm gonna disagree with that one. Like, obviously the ping, I agree with. The aesthetics, I agree with, but
playing this if you'd like to be highly mobile and you're not too concerned with the utility aspect of the ranged role. Ah, yes. The world of the melee is a heavily populated one indeed.
She didn't shit on it, it's alright.
They tend to look sick as fuck and have higher DPS potential than most of the jobs from other roles. It's all about the big numbers, baby. They also have higher survivability with DPS gear that has the best defensive stats out of the bunch. They all have good utility, save for Samurai, which I'll talk about more later. Their rotation...
Compared to Dancer, you need a diploma for Machinist. I disagree. I have been playing Machinist a long time, but honestly, like, that's proc-based versus static rotation. Like, Dancer's like whack-a-mole. Machinist is just press things when they're off cooldown. It's really not that hard. Compared to Dancer.
On average can be a little bit more complex, but they're still not too bad once you get the hang of it. Their main drawback is pretty easy to guess. They have to stay in melee range to maintain their DPS, and it can take time to get the exact spacing for max melee range down to a T. These classes may take a while to master, but rest assured that it's very possible.
It's more complex than some melee rotations
flashy job that's haunted by its past of being a floor tank, which isn't really deserved, because all melees spend time tanking the floor, and it doesn't deserve to be singled out like that. It has a busy rotation with lots of off-global cooldowns to weave, but the 6.1 changes have helped fix some of the animation luck issues attached to the jumps. For a starting class, it's honestly not the most approachable if you're starting from level 80, but if you're planning to go from level 1, it has a natural progression of ramping up the difficulty bit by bit. It has average mobility with a few jumps that can close the distance, and a backwards jump that has caused some memes to occur. It has great utility with a DPS boosting tether and a party-wide crit buff at its disposal.
Honestly, like, some classes like Dragoon are really like nice to level because you get used to them as they go on. Paladin's another one. Things like Black Mage and stuff are really fucking bad to level because, good god, they change constantly. And it's actually insane.
Complaint with this job is that they'd be better off with cone AoEs rather than line AoEs, but it's not hard to get used to. I'd pick this job if you love the aesthetic and you like the feeling of always having something to do in your rotation. Ninja is the masochist of the DPS group that likes to be publicly humiliated for messing up its rotation. Yes, if you mess up the Mudra mechanic, the devs have decided the entire party should be able to know. So this job isn't for you if you don't like wizard bunnies. Because of that, you'll need to memorize a few different combinations for Mudra, but it's very easy to pick up and memorize quickly. It has a speed buff that it needs to maintain, so it's a fast-paced job. Mobility-wise, it's not too bad, with Shikuchi that requires you to ground target to move, which, once again, can be a pain for controller users, but it can also maintain a bit of uptime with their mudras, so some can be cast from afar. This job isn't the most approachable of all or anything, but it's still not too difficult to pick up and do decent numbers with. This job is a good choice if you're okay with a bit of memorization.
I like Ninja, but god, it packs so much into a short time. That's rough for new players.
Isn't about how much you can meditate. It's about how hard you can punch a cat girl directly in their sinful adventurer plate.
Hey! Hey! Don't hate, man. This is why people play the game.
Recently, it received an overhaul this expansion, so lots of things are different from before. They have good utility in the form of Brotherhood, and because it comes with a built-in speed buff, it's decently fast-paced. While they do have off-global cooldowns to deal with, they're not as reliant on them as some
surprised she didn't use
jobs are.
Harrows.
They've got good mobility with 3 stacks of Gap Closer, which is necessary because this job is punished the most when you need to keep distance from the boss. They have high DPS, and while this job's rotation did confuse me at first glance, I realized how simple it was during the short leveling process. If even an idiot like me can do it, you'll be fine. Pick this job if you like to do big numbers and DBZ is your favorite anime. Reaper is the spoiled brat of the melee
nothing to
DPS
say about
that gets anything it wants because it's the newborn baby.
Reaper's
but I mean,
too
don't
flashy,
make me as bitter or anything.
my
This is
opinion.
a really fun job.
Like, Reaper's cool, but like, the effects are too much, man. Because they're like constant. Every button you press is like a huge slash.
To play, and everyone and their mom's dog likes it. It has a simple rotation, and I'd say it's the most approachable melee by a good bit. This is partly because it has very few off-global cooldowns compared to the other melee. It plays at a moderate speed, with some fast-paced moments in their edgy avatar form, but it's all very manageable. Their AoE rotation is also insanely satisfying and looks cool as hell. It has good mobility with Ingress and is the only melee that can cast spells from a distance. Its utility is great.
It's like they
with
took
Arcane
smoke
Circle
effects
buffing
from, like,
damage and
Wind
Arcane
Waker
Crest, putting a potent regen
put it
on
on
the
a
entire
job.
party when broken. Don't ask me how a Reaper is healing people. I choose not to think about it. Because of how simple and fun this job is, I highly recommend it to any new players who want to try melee, or just people who want to experience a rewarding gameplay loop. I would say that Samurai is the job for weeaboos, and I would be correct, but it goes a bit deeper than that. Samurai is for degenerate weeps. Normal weeps should go back to Ninja where they belong. Fair warning that it's also received some very controversial changes that may be reverted, so please note that the experience may be different soon. Anyway, Samurai is a moderate to fast-paced job that needs to maintain
no.
a DPS and speed buff to do maximum damage. It's
Hold them back, man. Keep the leashes on. We're almost through. Yo, what's up, Rin? Yeah, I don't know, man. This really is the apex of Square Enix's questionable design decisions. I don't know. I hope they do revert it. They're at least only guaranteed crit and not direct hit, but Christ. Hey, Sixy. What's up, dude?
System lets it use 3 unique EI jutsus, which are all good for different situations and will always crit. They have the Kenki gauge, which is used for your mobility, which is a backstep and a gap closer. Other than that, you mostly use Kenki to spam a filler DPS move called Shinten. It's relatively approachable and easy to understand, meaning you can pull good numbers with this job without 100% knowing what you're doing. In exchange for having the best melee
Freestyle
DPS, it
Samurai.
has no utility to speak of. So when things go south, Samurai kinda just has to shrug. Because it might get reworked soon, I can't outright recommend it to new players until at least 6.2. But if you're determined to try it out, I'd recommend it to players who value high numbers and only...
I don't know. I think... Alright, maybe this is a hot take, but I think, like, not recommending it to players until 6.2 is a bit much. I don't think... Also, clean your inventory. Holy fuck. I think that's a bit much. Like, it's not killed the job. It's just not what it used to be. New players will still enjoy it. Just anyone who played it now and then it changed. That's a problem. Yeah, like, you know, that's like saying, like, don't recommend Machinist. It's like, it's not about that. Yeah, it's really not about that. You don't need, like, the average player still doesn't have to fucking care about this. It's just that, like, they might really like the job and then they hear about how much better it used to be. So, I honestly think that's a bit much to say, but just my opinion.
Want to focus on their own damage and would rather let the rest of the party do their own thing. And we also have wait, holy shit, I already did every valid job. Man, I truly got lost in the 19
You don't need to
job
talk
sauce.
about
I'm not
Blue
sure if anything I
to be
said
honest.
made sense.
It's
but
just
if
like its
nothing
own
else,
content
I hope you're a
bubble.
little bit closer to jumping into Eorzea with the same confidence
for
of a
beginners
next
now,
who
maybe.
immediately chooses to play a cat girl and never thinks twice. Have a wonderful day. And may Yoshiki
Thanks.
have mercy on your soul.
Thanks, Lucy. Cracking video as always. Pretty good. Always a fan. Yeah, I don't really know what to say. Just poor Samurai, I guess. Scholar used protect pre-port. I mean, I stick by my point about protect, man. Like, it was just an extra button. It like protect was like the epitome of fluff, man. Like really, it just it was really just like it was there and you had to press it, but it was an extra step that no one cared about, and they did it like because you have to, not because you want to. But that's how I feel about it. Yeah. Can't pull yet. Healer hasn't stone skin. I mean, I don't go that far back. I'm a Stormblood baby, but yeah. Why are your butt cheeks 2 chainsaws? Because if you touch them, I'm gonna fucking cut you. Got him. Good video.